All right, welcome in, folks. This is Henish with I've Got a Theory, and I've got my guest on, Elgin. Elgin, tell me your last name again.
Hollins.
Elgin Hollins, out of Texas. And Elgin, what's your company that you work with, that you
My
own?
company is Texas Sports Performance.
And then so you're like a trainer and you help athletes get better.
Yep. So we do physical training, functional training for athletes and adults, all ages from 4 all the way to however you want it be to stay fit. So.
Boom. Awesome. I love that. But we're not going to talk about that because I like to talk about theories, and you've got one. Tell me a little bit about what you got going on.
So I've got a theory, about the movement that's happening in our nation right now. And for me, as a Black American, growing up in a small island in Alaska, where I was a minority along with other Caucasians were minorities there because you live on an island and it's an Alaskan island. So you've got Alaska natives. So you are treated or looked at differently. So when we're looking at this movement, and I look at myself as someone that grew up in a town that's small, and then you go into Dallas, Texas is where we're at now, and you see all of the things that are happening to people, either white, Black, Mexican, whatever. I look at myself as like, okay, I've never felt what everybody else is feeling at this point. Like I never felt oppressed or anything like that because I just grew up in a small community where everybody helped each other out.
You didn't have this inequality, and so I guess what you're kind of coming from is that you've got this theory that because of, and so you told me you're from a place called Sitka, right? So let's look it up, Sitka, right? It's an island on southeast, like the little tippy part, probably the warmer parts of Alaska.
Yeah, closer to Seattle.
Yeah, so you're down there in that little stretch there, and I see it, and it's coastal and it's ocean, but you've got a population that hadn't had direct experience with anything, or maybe even indirect experience with stereotypes and prejudices. They were able to independently come up with their own opinion of you, and they didn't have any preconceived notions.
No, and I think a lot of it too is like, and what's crazy. So growing up there, you are so influenced, or you get a lot of your trends from. There wasn't social media, so it was MTV. I just remember MTV was like the big thing where people would, oh, this is what a Black person should look like, or this is what they should listen to, or so you get that in your brain, but you've never really see that kind of stuff because you don't have direct exposure like you do down here in the States, where it's just so easy to get influence to the left or to the right versus up there where you're not really influenced as much because you don't have direct access to things.
Well, so it wasn't just, the kids that you grew up with, but also probably their parents that had influence on them. They probably weren't like, oh, stay away from that Elgin guy because he's bad news. They probably didn't know that. They never thought that at all.
And so growing up, I met a lot of my close friends today just because of our community connections and because of their parents and what they influenced on their kids as we grew up. So we never, talked or preached race. It was always, hey, I'm going to my so-and-so's friend's house, and we never had an issue with that. Yeah. And so growing up there from 1991 to the 2000s, I've never experienced that. And so now when we fast forward, it's 2020, almost decades later, it's like, okay, this is real, but I've never had those tough experiences that some of others may have had on the other side. And so it's very hard for me to sometimes say, oh, well, what do you believe? And I was like, well, I've never experienced that, so I couldn't really tell you what to feel or what to say because I've never experienced.
You think it's a different experience experiencing it as growing up as a child versus, coming to a place where it might be present and you're an adult and you might have subtle or implied racism or stereotypes coming at you?
I think so too, because now we fast forward, I'm a business owner in a community where there is, cultural differences, but I think as a business owner, I think I've built myself and my family where we're in an area where I hate to say this, but we live in a really nice house. We have a pool. Me and my wife drive really, really nice cars for our age, and our kids go to school. So I think when you're at a certain status financially, I think aren't, you aren't in a position where you feel, or I guess you just don't feel or notice it, I guess for me, like I tell people, I just don't really pay attention to it because I'm so busy helping others be successful in their walks of life with being healthy that I don't spend my time listening or being judged. I guess if you're not here to help me and help our company or help our families be successful, then I really don't pay attention to all the negative stuff that's out there, because there's too much positive that we're trying to influence on people to listen to all the negativity out there.
Well, it's this saying that I've heard is that what you focus on expands. So if you're looking for and trying to find someone's ill intentions or misconceived notions about you or your ethnicity or your color, you're going to find it. But if you're not, you're only going to find the positives and you're going to focus on that. Is that what you
Absolutely. And I'm a firm believer of that, because coming into a new community where no one knows who I am or knows anything about me, it's all built off of what they see face value. So if you're present and you are, you speak well and you are willing to serve others, then that's what they're going to think of you to begin with. They have no other reason to think worse of you unless you're doing something that's not what you say you're going to do.
Right. So what's our takeaway from this, Elgin? How do we, because that's a great attitude to have, but unfortunately many people that look like you or to a lesser extent look like me, growing up didn't have that same unbiased experience growing up, right? Not all of us came from a small island in Alaska where we're all buddies with everyone. And there, there weren't probably, bad parts of town, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So I think like the biggest thing is so I've got 3 kids. And so I really try to expose my kids to always seeing the good in people. I think that's the thing when we talk about others or we say, oh, this person, I'm always trying to figure out what's the best way to uplift somebody or put the good into that person, because I know that that's there, but also there are bad people in this world that have bad intentions and bad stuff. But I think if you surround yourself with people that are not necessarily like-minded or think the same way you do, but everybody's going to come from a different background, a different walk of life, and we're all going to have different opinions. But I think in our society, it really does start with our youth and our young kids. And I think if you are preaching the right things and saying the right stuff to your kids as they get older, I think there is a generational thing that you can change and hope push that in the right direction. That's just what I believe and what I preach with my own kids. They're young enough now where I do let them know, like, hey, there are bad people, but hey, we always want to figure out what can we get the good out of somebody. So I think that's the big thing for me.
So yeah, I was talking to someone earlier, an educator as well, and talking about, like, you shouldn't spend your resources trying to fix adults. Just put your energy into fixing, making sure the kids are raised the right way.
I think that's true. I really do believe that. I think, there's going to be some adults that may be willing to change, but then there's some adults that are just, hey, this is how it is. This is what I believe, and too bad. So why waste your energy on that 10% when there's 90% that we can change at a young age now?
Yeah, it's a tough message to swallow. If someone's on the other side of this podcast listening in and be like, screw these guys, they don't know, like they don't know what we came through. What would you say to someone that says, hey, you don't know what kind of, stuff that they grew up with that was bad, that was.
And so I guess, so we look at this too, then a part of me says, I get that, but it's also another part is we can sit there and dwell in the past and say, oh, this person, did this to me, but it's what you make of your opportunities. Everybody's given a choice, whether they want to go to the left or go to the right. It's up to you to make that decision. No one's going to force you to always feel woe is me. But here's a good one. We live in the United States where it is truly the land of opportunity. You cannot tell me 30, 50 years ago that you can be a Black American and go out and do what you want to do and make money and be successful. you can do that now. And so when someone wants to say, woe is me, then you just have the wrong mentality and the wrong attitude, because there's way more success stories than there are negative stories. And we just have to figure out how to get to that point. But there are, like I said, you can dwell in the past. The past is there to teach us. It's not there to consistently say, oh, well, this is what was done in the past, so we just got to keep going that direction.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, because every day is today forward, right? You can't fix yesterday.
Absolutely.
You can't fix
Nope.
yesterday.
Yesterday is done.
Yeah, I always make this joke, and people take this quote from me. I was like, you can either work hard or complain there's no work. There's only two options.
And it is so true, though. I'm a firm believer of that also. Like, just work hard.
Just work hard. Yeah.
Just work hard. That's it.
Yeah. Are you going to complain there's no work? Someone's working harder than you at the same thing that you're saying that there's no work at, right?
100%.
It's especially true when you're a business owner and you're always hustling for additional business or to grow your business. Like, you can complain there's no business, or you could just work hard to get it because there's business out there.
Absolutely. And I was just talking to another business owner that has a business right down the road from me, and we said the same thing. It's either going to hustle or someone's going to out hustle you. But there's work to be done, and it's a matter of how much you want to be successful. So if you want to be successful, like I stole a quote from Eric Thomas, you want to work as hard as you can, but you want to be successful. You want to, I forgot how he said it, but anyways, it's like breathing. Like, you want to use every bit of energy to breathe, then that's what you should be using to be successful too. So
yeah. So coming back to your theory, because you grew up in such a unique place, you didn't have these kind of issues growing up, or at least not obviously, right? You didn't remember or recognize any of these kind of issues growing up. Because I grew up in suburban Michigan, but playing for my high school football team or traveling with my sports teams for basketball or whatever, I'd been to like the thumb area of Michigan. They show Michigan like this, right? But this thumb area right here is nationally recognized as the highest concentration of racist organizations in the United States. So It's like literally 101% white here in that area of Michigan. And I'm more from like here, closer to Detroit, where there's diversity and there's Middle Easterners and blacks and Mexicans. But up here, it's all white. And there's countless times where I've walked into like a Wendy's burger place or something, and like the restaurant like halts, like comes to a halt, and people are like, what the heck is that guy doing in here? When I was younger, I was a little bit darker too. I've gotten light in my older age, I suppose, for some reason. But yeah, I mean, nothing overtly horrible happened, but
no, I think like I remember one incident when I was younger, but I just don't. I never let those incidents or let that. Maybe it's because my parents guarded us from a lot of it, but I never let those things that happened to me or to our family affect my decision of where I'm at today.
Yeah.
So have I gotten pulled over? Absolutely. But I probably was speeding, or I probably was not stopping to a complete stop. And those are violations, and it is what it is. Now, was I scared? Yeah. But I feel like if I'm doing the right thing and I know that I'm doing the right thing, it is what it is.
You've got good odds of getting out of it.
Yeah, but if I'm up to no good and I get pulled over, well, guess what's probably going to happen? You're probably not going to have a very good outcome at the end of the day.
So what's our takeaway from this? Elgin? What can we do? What's advice can we provide, or what kind of enlightenment can we provide to potential listeners that says how we can handle this? Is this, hey, just as this is an attitude, you've got to just deal with it and plow through it and work hard and achieve what you want and not let this noise disturb you? Or do we have to make a stand and try to fight for some kind of reform at a systemic?
I think it's both. I think you have to make a stand and recognize that there is a problem and figure out how we're going to fix it. And I think educating ourselves and educating our youth and educating all walks of life and just being better people to each other. And then I think on the other time is, if you're focused and driven on what you want to accomplish in life, you can't let the past affect your future. Even though the past is there to remind us, hey, this is what has happened. Well, now we have to learn from that as well too. It's just like a kid, hey, don't touch the stove, it's hot. Well, what do you think that kid's going to do? He's probably going to touch the stove. Oh, yeah, you're right, Dad. It is hot. Right? You kind of learn from being burnt. Well, same thing in life, too. Right? We've had examples. We've had things that happen in life to this nation, to this country. But we have to start to learn, and we do have to start to recognize. I think, I think it's great that now do you see these athletic figures like LeBron James and these sports figures start to really use their platform to educate people and educate the youth. I think the one thing I watched, I don't know if it was a couple years ago, about the shut up and dribble. These are more than just athletes. These are real people that have real lives and they go through real things. Yeah, they make billions of dollars, but they still feel that pressure out there too. So I think when you have a country now that's awake and listening, now I think it's real time. I think you can actually make a positive change, but it takes everybody from all sides, all walks to do it.
So there's still no shortage of countries and places on the planet where it is very homogenous. I remember hearing something about how Denmark claims to have super high quality of life and everyone's happy and things like that. And then when you ask them why, they're like, "Oh, it's because we're all the same. We all look the same. We all feel the same." And I'm like, well, there's pros and cons to that, because also the problem of that, it is homogenous. You don't get any of that variety or that culture, that differences that make life worth living. I would argue that there's some benefit in having a variety of people from different backgrounds with different experiences and thoughts and mindsets to come together. Ideally, if you put that energy towards good, positive effect, you could have more creativity than a homogenous population that always thinks and believes the same thing. What do you think?
I think so too. I think that's a great look at it too. I think if you have a group of people and everybody comes from a different background and has different experiences, different exposures, I think you can learn a lot from that. I learned that there are different ways to solve a problem, or different ways to look at a situation and potentially fix it. I think one of the key things for a lot of these different communities, and I see that in our own community where I live in now, is you got to have that dialogue, have that conversation with all forms of walk out here, because I think you can learn a lot, and I think there's a lot of solutions out there. And I'm not saying one solution is better than the other, but I do understand that there are more ways to fix things than to tear things down too. So.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because we were discussing right before we started taping is that government and bank policies prevented people from kind of commingling with each other with different ethnicities, right? That was an issue that happened 50 plus years ago. And now we still have the lasting effects of that, because now you've got generational wealth that is either increased or decreased depending on what part of town you live in. And then as a result, you've got property taxes that are directly related to the quality of education that you get in that area. So now it further exacerbates the problem, because now you got people that may be in areas that were disadvantaged because of policies from large organizations or institutions that are now impacting second and third generations of children who don't have enough books for their classrooms.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just it's so crazy when you listen to that and you think about that as an adult with a family with young kids. You make decisions based off of information that is out there, meaning my wife and I made a decision on where we're going to put our kids in school based off of that very same information.
Yeah, which is nuts, because I know when we were kids, I don't think our parents ever considered what's the school rating in this neighborhood,
No. I didn't even understand any of that until I had my own kids. I'm like, oh, they're a C school? Oh, we're definitely not living in this area. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, one of their test scores? Okay, all right. Well, that means the housing medium is this. And I was like, I was educated more on you make real decisions, business decisions for your kids based off of information of policies that happened back then that affect us today. So
you want to give them the best opportunity. Yeah, of course. So you want to give your kids the best opportunity that they don't want to have. You don't want to give them the struggles that you may or may not have had to go through just so they can focus on what they need to, which is have fun and learn some stuff and become a good adult.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think it's so unique when you look at that retrospectively and looked at that moving forward now. It's very unique, very different. But a
So
lot of people make those decisions though like that. So
do you think in these other areas that, and it's probably isolated throughout the United States or Alaska or Canada or these other places in North America where there's, a low percentage of minorities of any type interacting with a potentially majority, white Anglo-Saxon population, do you think they've had similar experiences to you in terms of like they had to just, they had to prove their own character and people didn't prejudge them?
I think so. I still think that's out there. I mean, moving to Texas in this rural community that I live in now, I think it's very similar to Alaska, even though Alaska was kind of cut off from the mainland, we call it. But this community that I live in now, I mean, you're connected by just roads, by interstate, and so where you get people coming in from all different walks of life, and you get people leaving from all different walks of life. So that influences your entire community population. But I still think if people still have the same type of heart mindset, I still think you can be, I don't know, it's kind of hard to say because social media plays a huge part now moving forward that it never did before.
True.
And I think that's the big thing is because you reach so many people and you get influenced so easily. And I see this every day with our youth that I work with. Something new comes out on TikTok and you see thousands of kids doing it. Now that's the new cool thing, which that used to never be like that. So,
okay, so I haven't spent nearly enough time on TikTok. I saw it and I saw a bunch of kids dancing and I was like, okay, if I want to watch kids dancing, I'll do this. Is there other information being conveyed on TikTok that's not just kids dancing?
I think so. I'm learning about it. I don't have it myself, but I'm watching other businesses do it. But I think how they're using it to pull in, they're using that platform to pull in that younger generation of kids. And so I think it's a very interesting way of doing it. And I'm on the older side, so I don't see myself doing it as much because I'm like, I don't really want to watch a video and dance to it. That's just not what I want to do.
Okay, so just making sure I didn't miss anything because it's been a quick minute since I saw TikTok and I was like, let me uninstall this app because I don't need to see kids dancing all day long.
Yeah, so that was the same thing. I downloaded it, I looked at it, and I was like, yeah, this may not be for my demographic, so I'm going to stick to Facebook where people like myself use it. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, interesting. Well, cool. Well, Elgin, I appreciate spending some time with you and having you share your, perspective on race relations and how contingent it is on your upbringing and your location, right? And then also access to outside media. The fact that you lived on an island and you didn't probably have, I think we're about the same age. We didn't have high-speed internet growing up until probably we were 18, 19, 20 years old. And then even then the internet was pretty crappy, right? Anything before 2000, even 2005, there wasn't much online. Now
there's so much information out there. It's just crazy.
Well, not just information. The bigger problem is the misinformation.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's my biggest frustration now moving forward is there's so much misinformation that you can grab any piece of content out there, then people will just run with it and think that's the truth. And it's so funny when people are posting stuff, I'm like, where did you get your source from? Because I don't think that's a real legit source you're posting. And now you have all these arguments and debates. I'm like, that's like fake news and it's legit fake news. And so
it's too bad because you can't, no one has the bandwidth to figure out what's right and what's wrong, so that's why I always try to take anything I see as like, all right, it's in the realm of possibility. I'm not giving it 100% fact or 100% false yet. I'm always trying to put it in the range of what's possible. And that's kind of why I like having this podcast is to have that conversation with people, to show people what's the range of possible, right? Because now you're telling us that you can grow up in an almost entirely white community. We don't have to say that it's in the middle of nowhere and have a very interesting non-judgmental, stereotyped upbringing where you weren't judged by what you look like. You were judged because you lived there and you were a good person or however.
You're either doing the right thing or you're doing the wrong thing. I can tell you one thing before we leave is I remember getting in trouble at school, getting home, and my mom knew exactly what happened before I even walked in the door. And this is pre-cell phone. It's all pre of that. So there wasn't a lot of people exchanging emails. It was literally just word of mouth. So you
Yep.
live in a community where hey, so-and-so did this, da-da-da, they got in trouble, whatever. And then your mom's like, hey, man, what happened at school? I'm like, so you had no room to lie because you already knew the truth was already there.
Yeah, like, what'd you
So,
hear?
yeah, what are you talking about? I don't know. I forgot.
Yeah,
So
right?
I think that was the other thing. It's just you had made a point when you said when you have social media, there's a lot of misinformation. But then when when there is no social media in where we grew up at that time frame, you were either judged by your character and about what you did and what you didn't do.
Yep.
So you had a very true, well, I feel it was 100% how you can judge someone if they're a good person or a bad person based off of how they presented themselves.
There was no preconceived notions. There was
exactly.
Look like this, as a result, you must be this, right?
Exactly.
Which is
so now it's like that. Now that's the case, though. Oh, right. You're this. Oh, must be what you listen to, what you do, and what you're about. No, this is. I think another good one too is I've done many phone interviews with people. We've never like videoed, and I remember moving from Alaska to Albuquerque, New Mexico for a job, and they never once saw a picture of me or anything. I walk into the job, and they're like, huh, you're black. But that's just because they didn't know, because the way I communicated over the phone, I sounded like them. I did the right answers and all that stuff. I was able to do the job, of course.
Right.
But that was their first thing. One of the guys, and we're good friends today, he's like, I never knew you were black. You don't even sound black, because in his mind, he thinks a black person should sound like this or like that.
Right.
Because he had preconceived notions.
That's not where you grew up. That's not who you grew up with.
That's not how I grew up or where I grew up. So
yeah,
it's just interesting, like how that changes.
I know. I hate seeing that stat when they're like, oh, if you have an ethnic or black sounding name, you're less likely to get a job than a white sounding name. I'm like, man, that sucks. That just
right.
Yeah, you could have all the same qualifications.
Think about that, though. You can have all the right characteristics and all the qualifications, but if your name is Jaquan, they're probably not gonna hire you.
Right.
But that's a true thing. It really happens.
I know, it's sad. So we have to fix that somehow, and it doesn't happen quickly, right? You can only kind of convert a couple people at a time, I suppose.
Yep. That's it. I mean, that's our hard thing. So.
Well, Elgin, I appreciate you spending some time with me. And I've got a theory, and your theory was compelling, that it's not universal. Racism isn't universal.
No.
It's not. It's very society and neighborhood specific.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Elgin, thank you for joining me on I've Got a Theory with Henish Political. Please like, comment, subscribe, and we'll catch you guys next time.